Hey y'all, welcome back to episode 3 of Civics for the Culture. If you missed the first 2 episodes and you want to catch the rest, be sure to click the link below and make sure you're following us at Fair Fight Action.
You know, now that I think about it, abortion isn't a common topic at the dinner table. At least it wasn't in my household.
Abortion has been considered a taboo topic for as long as we can remember. But why is that?
Today we're joined by my girl, Xakota. She's gonna walk us through how shame and stigma have been used to restrict access to abortion care for decades.
So Xakota, seems like we have a lot of catching up to do.
Hey, Kristen and Amani, happy to be here with y'all today, and I'm gonna do my best to keep this tight. While we know a majority of Americans support the protections of Roe and the legal right to abortion, opponents have been working round the clock for years to convince us that making personal decisions about our own bodies is not culturally, socially, or morally acceptable. And their core tactic, disinformation. Opponents to reproductive freedom learned early on that they could weaponize disinformation to radicalize people, essentially binding the movement against abortion together with lies. At the same time, they were waging attacks on a second front, the states. Once Roe became law of the land, extremists knew they couldn't ban abortion outright, so instead, they worked to slowly chip away at access by passing insane laws that made it harder for people of color, those in rural areas, and folks with low incomes to access the essential care they need. Listen, not only do these types of restrictions push access to abortion out of reach for millions, they also force people seeking care in some states to suffer through invasive exams and really stressful delays to care. In short, they didn't just come for our freedom, they came for our dignity.
But how are their efforts so successful? Make it make sense.
So by misleading the public with medically inaccurate information, aka lies, and using incendiary language to rile folks up, they created the false impression that reproductive freedom is the single most polarizing issue of our time. Part of the reason they've gotten away with it for so long is because they've created a stigma around abortion to keep us from having conversations that are rooted in our collective humanity. They want people who support the right to abortion to feel like they're in the minority, but really that could not be farther from the truth. And look, with so much stigma surrounding the topic of abortion, it's not surprising that folks have shied away from having open and honest conversations about reproductive freedom and bodily autonomy. Instead, we were told it wasn't polite conversation or appropriate. And that's exactly what opponents wanted. Why? Because the longer we go without talking about our shared struggles, the longer we remain in the dark. And when we're unaware of how many people share our values, we're unable to coordinate efforts to fight back against disinformation, stigma, and restrictions on our own bodies.
Did y'all hear that? What we just learned is that extremists try to front like reproductive rights are a divisive issue because they know the numbers aren't on their side.
By continuing to push the idea that abortion is a controversial topic that must be avoided, opponents were able to effectively shame people from speaking up.
And with tactics specifically designed to dehumanize, if not outright demonize people for seeking abortion care, is it any surprise that we're seeing some folks taking it upon themselves to harass and terrorize patients and providers?
We promise we're not here to be downers, but we are trying to be real with you. Talking about these issues is one of the most effective and easiest ways to fight back.
So what next?
Talk to your friends and family. The stigma surrounding abortion is a tactic to prevent people from having open and honest conversations.
Explain how when it comes to decisions about our lives, families, and futures, it's impossible to put ourselves in someone else's shoes, which means we shouldn't be making decisions for them.
Remind them that restrictions on abortion care are attempts to restrict our freedom, because at the end of the day, personal decisions about pregnancy should be made by the person who is pregnant. Duh.
Because regardless of whether you personally choose to have an abortion, I think we can all agree that decisions about reproductive health should not be in the hands of politicians.
For more tips on removing shame and judgment from conversations about abortion care, check out the National Network on Abortion Funds, which provides resources like their Heart-to-Heart Toolkit.
That's all for episode 3. Make sure you check out those resources, talk to your friends and family, and we'll catch you next time.